Welcome to another episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. This week's episode is Radical. Liz Curran is the co-founder of Radical Remission, and this will go into things that will shock you. It will wake you up, and it will massively change your life if you'll just open your heart and your mind. Hope you enjoy as much as I did. So, Liz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kara. I'm so excited to be here today.
I've been excited. You are the only guest that I have actually really gone after to have on my show because I'm so impressed with Radical Remission. So can you give us just a real quick overview of what the documentary is about?
Absolutely. So Radical Remission started out as a thesis for Dr. Kelly Turner as she was getting her PhD. She studied spontaneous remissions. She traveled all around the world and interviewed and studied cases in medical journals to figure out what people were doing to heal outside of conventional treatment. And what she found over the course of that series of years studying and researching, she found that over 1,500 cases of spontaneous remission all used these same 10 what we call healing factors and their lifestyle changes. So they're just different nuances and things that people can do throughout their life to kind of live a more kind of balanced, complete lifestyle. But it was really powerful for cancer patients to find remission. And while we're not against conventional medicine in our practice, we like to advocate strongly that these things are good for cancer patients to be doing in conjunction with whatever treatment plan they have. And also for anyone else that just wants to kind of live a more balanced life.
Okay. So Kelly went and she studied. I read the book. I watched the documentary. I am so interested in all this stuff. She was in her undergrad and she was volunteering at a cancer center, found someone who had a radical remission and was blown away. She didn't know that existed. She had no idea that anyone could cure themselves without the conventional regular treatments. And so that put her on a trajectory for her whole class, all the way to her PhD, correct?
She actually found, so the radical or spontaneous remission survivor was Shin Teriyama. She found out about him as she was already an oncology social worker. So she'd gotten her master's. She was in the throes of the work, doing the work as an oncology social worker. And then she heard about this one spontaneous remission and she thought he was the only one. And she was like, why isn't he on the news? We should all be like studying this guy. And then she went home that night and she just dove into the medical research and found that there were, I think, over 1,000 documented cases. And she decided that she was going to go back for her PhD that next day. She went back to Berkeley where she was working and had said, I want to study this. And they said, well, that's something nobody studied before. Are you sure you want to get into this? And she said, yes, I do. And they said, well, if you can fund it, then you can do it. So she got a grant from the American Cancer Society and she traveled around the world. She went to 10 different countries over the course of 2 years and interviewed what she thought she was going to be interviewing: the healers, the doctors, the people that were treating the patient. And as she was traveling, she found how willing the patients were to meet her as well. So she connected to the patients through the practitioners. And that's how kind of it all began. And then after she finished her PhD, her thesis became the New York Times bestselling book, Radical Remission, which I have right here. And that was in 2014. And then she continued the research beyond that 1,000 mark to that 1,500, plus. And that is what birthed Radical Hope. And that came out in 2020, just before the pandemic. So it's not as widely known as Radical Remission because I think of the timing of its release, but it's a beautiful twist on the original book, very similar format where we talk about, what came up in the research, why that came up in her research. Then we share external research that validates it. And then we share a healing story or multiple healing stories, depending on what book you're looking at, of someone who utilized that factor most strongly. But all of the people that were researched did all 10 healing factors. So they're really powerful and it really is very inspiring for people. But Radical Hope not only touches on cancer, but it touches on all kinds of different, we call them like life-changing diagnoses, MS, Alzheimer's, ALS, people who have reversed those things by utilizing these same 10 healing factors. And some of them are outlined in or presented in the docuseries that you're talking about, the Radical Remission docuseries, where you can see interviews with people with all kinds of different diagnoses, including cancer, that really shows so much inspiration on healing for people.
Whew, okay, I've a billion questions. None of them are written down. None of the ones I wrote down, but what kind of pushback did she get for this?
I think there has been over time the misconception that radical remission, that term, is a little intimidating for the conventional world. The pushback has really been more that people think we're against conventional medicine and we're trying to advocate alternative treatments. We don't care what people choose to do. We want people to do everything that they feel comfortable doing, including obviously conventional treatment if that's for them. And I'll actually just share with you from the beginning of Radical Hope, we outline what is the definition of a radical remission. And I'll just share that with your audience so that they know, because that is the resistance, right? The resistance has been that they don't want to support these lifestyle changes, and they're really just lifestyle changes. I think people don't get that far to even realize that. But they don't want to support it as heavily because just the name. So someone who is considered a radical remission is someone who heals without conventional treatment. So she did work, research people that did not ever do any conventional treatment. Second group are people who have first tried conventional treatment. It doesn't lead to a remission. And then they find remission after they leave conventional treatment. And then the third, and this is, I would say, the most common, is that it's a combination of people who have used both conventional and alternative treatments at the same time in order to outlive a dire prognosis that has a 25% 5-year survival rate or less. So people who have that really dire prognosis, we want to reach those people and let them know there's thousands of people out there that still find healing and it's not a death sentence. And, the more you can wrap your head around that, the easier the journey will be. And not saying it's going to be a piece of cake, but certainly hope goes a long way.
Oh my goodness. On a whole different plane, I truly believe that you have to believe that you can get better. Because if you believe you can't, Henry Ford said it. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are correct.
You're right. Yeah. I love that quote.
Yeah. So that's a very, very important thing. And the fact that there are so many people in the book that have been willing to say, this is what I went through. And that was 20 years ago. That was 30 years ago. And the fact that hope, like you said, I can't wait to read that book. I didn't even know it existed. So that'll be on my next reading list.
Good. I'm glad that we shared that with you today.
Oh gosh, yes, and I'm sure everybody else will too. And as far as the documentary, where can they go see the documentary if they would like to just check it out?
So if you go to Hay House, their website, I think it's hayhouse.com, and you just type Radical Remission into the search bar, you'll find Radical Hope. You can purchase Radical Hope through there, and you can purchase the docuseries. I think it's $29.99 for the entire docuseries, and then you just have lifelong access to it. I believe Hay House now has an app that you can, join the app, and then it's automatically included in that as well.
Okay. All right. So do a little research on your own. We got you headed in the right direction. Definitely.
Yeah. And, before I should mention, the first episode is free on YouTube. So if somebody would like to, I can certainly give you that for the show notes. Okay. If anybody wants to go watch the first episode and see if they like it before they buy it.
Dip your toe into the water a little bit. Don't dive all the way in, because it does. I understand that it is not the normal. And the thing about living in today, I think the true measure of success is that you're able to deal with change, because there's nothing that's the same as it was even yesterday, let alone a year ago. And so this is a new way of thinking. Everything's a new way of thinking now.
Yep. Yeah. And the more comfortable you can be with change, the easier your life is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you were the co-director of the documentary?
I am the co-director of the Radical Remission Project. So Kelly Turner is her undergrad. Actually, she went to Harvard for screenwriting, and so she was a screenwriter and had an idea for a movie about a radical remission. It has not yet come to be, but she actually is currently working in that world, trying to get different movies and things out into to share her stories. And she's actually acting in one of them right now, which is pretty cool. But one of the factors in the book, one of the lifestyle changes, and we can certainly get to that, is strong reasons for living. And a couple years back, she's running the Radical Remission Project. She's, we train coaches, we offer workshops, and she's working it, and she's really feeling called to go share her stories with the world. So that's when my co-director, Carla Mans-Giroux, and myself stepped in, and we took on the role of kind of running the day-to-day of the Radical Remission Project so that she had more time to go write her screenplays. And as she says, I truly just need to follow my strong reasons for living. That is what I learned from these people that I've come to love, and through these interviews and the lessons that she's learned.
Wow. She sounds like just an amazing person. I'm very grateful that you get to be in business with her. That's a very cool thing.
Yeah,
So being
she's
the
great.
co-director, what's one of your favorite things about her?
She's just always sees the light in something. I think that's probably the best way to put it. She can always find a path to yes.
Very cool. Okay, so um, you're the co-founder of Health Navigators. Is Kelly involved in that as well?
So the Radical Remission Project originally, when she was running it, would offer radical remission workshops where we take the book and we bring it to life in this workshop. So she created the workshop, and then she started a family. So she was traveling all over the world offering these workshops in person, and then that kind of really grounded her. So she said, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to start training other people to teach this workshop. And that was first offered in 2017. And then in 2019 was the second training class. That was the class I was in with my co-director, Carla. And the two of us got trained. We met there. And we were already health coaches, and we were interested in becoming cancer health coaches. And so we went to the training, and we learned how to offer this workshop. So the Radical Remission Project doesn't offer actual workshops any longer. They offer the training, and then everybody that's trained offers the workshops around the world. So the Health Navigators is my private practice where we offer the workshops, and we offer cancer coaching for anyone that wants to work those healing factors.
Okay, so someone is in this position now. Um, let's say they've already been to the classic medical, and they just got their recommendations from the doctor, whatever those are. They've got their recommendations, and they didn't say yes immediately, which is so rare. And please, dear God, guys, listen to me. Please, if you never hear anything I ever say, please always take some time. The doctor is going to tell you what they believe is best for you, and they believe it with all their heart and soul, and it may be the best thing for you. However, if they won't allow you a week to really think about this and figure it out, and they're pushing you, you've got the wrong doctor. Am I right?
So well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, we have a Radical Remission podcast. And on that, I can't tell you, we always ask for a piece of advice from people to what they would share to someone who's new to a healing journey. And more than any, like by far more than any other piece of advice, is take a breath, get that diagnosis, and then pause and make sure that you are making decisions out of, what's the right decision and not out of fear. And you're right, being with the right medical team allows for that.
It does. And you guys, I am not, I'm not anti-medical at all. However, I will say that about every profession, it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a waitress, every single profession, the 80-20 rule prevails in life in general. And you've got 20% of that profession that is very, very good at it. 80% really aren't that good. The saving grace is the 20% are usually doing 80% of the business, right? So, you're not seeing it as much. However, you cannot, just because someone has the PhD does not mean that you can count on that they have your best interest at heart. No one cares about your body more than you do. Not a soul, not your very best friend, not your mama. And she loves you, but she doesn't care about your own body more than you do. So you have to be your own advocate. When you're facing this, someone has just gone, they've gotten the diagnosis. They happen to turn this on. Oh, what a coincidence, right? There's no coincidences, guys. You're listening to this at this time because you're supposed to be. And so they turn this on and they want to contact you. But before that, they want to read the book, but they're feeling pressured. They've got, oh my gosh, I've got this diagnosis. I have to do something about it. And their family's pressuring them and everybody's pressuring them. Why should they contact you instead of just trying to do it on their own right off the bat?
Right. Well, we always say the first stop can be radicalremission.com, because from there you can connect to the docuseries if you're someone who likes to watch things. You can get the books if you want to read. You can listen to the podcast. So there's so many ways that we're trying to make this information accessible to meet everyone where they are, because everybody processes things differently and maybe differently at different points in their life. And if that's, somebody just wants to curl up on the couch because they're feeling sad and scared, and the reason is for hope. Because all of these healing factors they're essentially, all of them can be done by you with the support of you, if you are that kind of person. And if you're not, then you need maybe a coach, a radical remission coach, or even a practitioner to help you implement these factors. There's only one healing factor on the list, which we can get to in a minute. There's only one that we say really needs to be done by a licensed practitioner, and that is utilizing herbs and supplements. Because we do believe that if you want to work with a naturopath or someone who has the training, they'll test you for what you need and not just say, oh, you have X diagnosis, take these 5 supplements, because it's so unique, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, as a coach and as someone who hires coaches, I'm telling you, it's like any job. Think about any job that you've ever had before. The first 6 months, the first year, you're just they're lucky that you showed up. You're trying so hard to keep up with it all, and it's just too much. The thing about a coach is they will take you from where you are to where you want to be so much more rapidly. So in other words, you can take the stairs or you can take the speed elevator and get started on what you need to start on right away. So let's go through a couple. You don't have to tell all 10, but let's go through a couple of the changes and go into detail on them.
Absolutely. So I can just summarize them. We put them into 4 categories. So we have our physical factors, which are your usual, change your diet, movement and exercise, and herbs and supplements. Those are the 3 physical. The other ones are spiritual, mental, and emotional. And the spiritual factors, I think, are probably usually the most surprising for people. They don't realize the impact of having a spiritual practice or following your intuition can really play on your health. And those are 2 really, I think, maybe less usual ones that people would think. So to us, deepening your spiritual practice or your spiritual connection really boils down to, if you have a religion, then that typically is how people would recognize spirituality. But a lot of people don't have an organized religion that they resonate with. So how do we explain this factor to them, and how do we teach it to them, is really looking at the world as if, you need to be able to identify something greater than yourself on this planet. And the way I like to exemplify that is just through this visualization of, imagine that you're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and you're just looking at the enormity of this majestic thing in the earth. And it makes you feel small, and it makes you really feel just like you're a little dot on this planet, this oneness, this connection with nature. I mean, maybe not everybody feels it that way, but, some people might find that out of jumping out of an airplane or just a simple walk in nature. So deepening your spiritual connection for a lot of people can be looking at it through the eyes of nature. Other people really resonate with a meditation practice and looking at that time as ritualistic and, making it a priority and sitting every day and really, sinking into the benefits of that meditation. So there's a lot of ahas that can come out of meditation practice for people, and using that for both spirituality and for intuition are highly recommended by our team.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there on that just because I heard the statistic recently and it blew my mind. And I'm very much a meditator. I almost didn't say that right. Like I've been drinking. It's 9 a.m. a meditator. Um, but uh, if you will meditate 4 times a week, you will. It's the equivalent of taking high blood pressure medicine and lowering your blood pressure. Isn't that
That's
amazing?
It's so powerful. If you dig into the research, you will never turn back on meditation. It is so concrete and it's cumulative, right? So if you want to meditate once a month, it'll be an enjoyable time and it might help you in that brief period of time. But the cumulative benefit of doing it repeatedly, like you said, 4 days a week, or if it's something that you really like, doing a little bit every day doesn't have to always be 30 minutes. If you can only find 5, or you just need to do breathing techniques in the car on a red light because that's all you have today, there is a cumulative benefit. So much happens in our brain when we do the meditation practices.
Oh yeah, it's undeniable. Okay, so what would you say is the one thing that most of your clients have the most resistance to doing at first?
Um, well, the thing that comes up when people say which factor looks the most difficult, we go back to those emotional factors, right? We have increasing positive emotions and releasing suppressed emotions. And I'm sure you could probably guess that the releasing suppressed emotions factor comes up, I would say, most frequently, because everybody feels like there's always something to work on. Everybody has different levels of trauma or life experience depending on their age or, what has happened to them over the course of their life. And it is surprising to me as a coach to observe how much midlife cancer there is with people who have had significant trauma as a kid. And I don't know if that's just that there's a lot more people that have trauma as kids that, it just doesn't get talked about, but that was something that surprised me in the early years of my coaching, was realizing how linked those two things were. And I think it goes under this factor, right? Releasing suppressed emotions means that you want to eliminate any blockages, any stagnant energy that comes from feeling a certain way: anger, fear, sadness. These are all things we want to feel, but we want to feel them and not just push them away. So that pushing away process is when it's going to get stuck. But if we can work it all the way through, and some people are more resilient than others, if you can work it all the way through and let it exit, then it doesn't sit in the body. And one of the more unusual things that comes up in this factor is that in the research, Kelly found that nostalgia was a suppressed emotion. So for someone who might be, oh, I remember the days when my kids were babies and I just want to go back to that time, they pine away. Or the guy who's like, oh, high school football was the best time of my life. I peaked then, that wishing away the present so you could go back to where you were is essentially that nostalgia. And we want to appreciate and love that time of our lives and, view them as memories, but not wish for that, you know? So that's really the ability to let go of holding on to that past, is part of releasing suppressed emotions.
Okay, so you are talking about this emotion from when you were 5 years old and it's physically stuck in your body somewhere.
Could be. Could be. Depends on, how you processed that, right? There's, lots of people, you could be in a car accident as a little kid, and depending on how the situation was handled, it could be fine. Or you could have lifelong trauma. You don't know. So it's really There's a lot of work that gets done in this factor. There's lots of people we refer out to, whether they're therapists or people who work with the emotional freedom technique, that EFT and tapping techniques, or different hypnotherapies kind of getting some attention. So lots and lots of different ways. It really, again, it's so individual and so personal. Some people can do it through journaling and just really reflecting on a time in their life that they have kind of been ignoring, and now they're ready to face it. And I always say you have to like think the whole entire story through, not just get to a point and stop. You need to get all the way to the end, or an emotion. You need to, if something's stressing you out, you're like, oh, I'm stressed because I have a meeting today that I have to present. I don't know, just making something up. But if you really think about it, that's not what's stressing you out. You're thinking about, am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to be embarrassed? What if I sneeze? Whatever comes up with that kind of fear. But you want to think it all the way through so that you can kind of come to the conclusion and make peace with all of those little mini fears around, that one thing. So if you're looking at, and that's just one example, there's so many big things that happen to us in our lives, and we may not have taken a long enough look at them. And that's when they can get stuck in our bodies. And then you see really beautiful things and really beautiful results with your body when you release those things. And that's sometimes, for certain people, that's been the secret that, puts them in remission.
It is really amazing. I've been working with an executive coach, and I just want to tell you guys the thought of when I read Radical Remission, and they said you have to release past trauma. I am so embarrassed to admit this out loud as a coach, but I used to think that if it was back there and it's not bothering you, leave it back there. And guys, I was dead wrong. I was dead wrong, and I will tell you, it's it's not as it's not as hard as you think when you have a good coach to get you through it. It and when it's over, you will be like a child again. You will jump on the bed. You will be so happy. It's like parts of you that you have shut down get to come back. And so it's worth doing whether you have a diagnosis or not, because eventually you probably will have a diagnosis if you have this in your body and you haven't dealt with it and you haven't released it. You really have to, one
Yeah,
way
or
or the
even,
other.
that diagnosis could end up not being physical as much as mental. It could be anxiety medication, just because you didn't handle something or address something that occurred to you. And honestly, I think it's most people have a similar experience that you shared. Oh, well, I'm good with that. That doesn't bother me. But when you really have to, go to a therapist and say that, and then they'll pull it out of you. But really, it's important to look at it and face it and talk through it, and make sure that you really feel healed.
That is one of the most important things. That it is very, very important. Okay, so people are most afraid. That doesn't surprise me, because that they're most afraid of releasing past trauma. And one more, their second, like, oh, I don't think I could do that.
Right. I don't know if you've heard this quote or if you've read the book Mind Over Medicine by Lissa Rankin, but
Mm-mm.
it came out around when Radical Remission came out back in the early 2010s. Um, she says that you can be healed but not cured, and you can be cured but not healed, but you want to be both. So you can find your way into remission using medical treatment and not taking any time to reflect back. And for some people that works, but you still might have all of that emotional baggage that could result in maybe not cancer, but some other, like we said, anxiety or another physical ailment. And a lot of chronic illness is similarly derived, like cancer. But then when you're cured, or sorry, when you're healed, regardless of the physical cure, when you're healed, you feel peace. And I don't know that I could find one person that wouldn't prefer to feel that over the physical healing. We all want peace. We all want that. We want the physical health, obviously. But if we can be at peace with whatever our physical state is, we're going to live a happier life than we are with a great physical body, but a lot of unresolved emotions.
It's so true, guys. Everything she's saying is so true. When I released a lot of it, and I'm sure there's still plenty more to go, but when I released a lot of that, the outside world would have looked at my life and said that I've got it going on. I've got a great life, and I do. And it's true. I have a great life. However, until that got healed, until those things got released, the great life was not so much up in here. I put out that it was a great life to everyone else, but now, oh my gosh, it is, I think it's probably the best thing I've ever done for myself. And that's something that women have a hard time doing, is taking time and doing things for themselves. How often is that an issue in your counseling?
So my partner in Radical Remission is also my partner in my practice, Carla Mansdrew. And what we have found, and we've talked about it, it's nice to have another coach to dialogue with just throughout the work. What we have found is for those people that aren't ready to make lifestyle changes, they have a lot of mental obstacles. They say they're going to do something, but they don't really week to week come back to sessions and have things kind of progressing. And what we found was there are different things that people, especially women, middle-aged women in particular, really need to work on in order to be ready to make change. And those things are having self-compassion. So allowing ourselves to make mistakes and not feel like we have to have that perfect facade, like you mentioned earlier. Then another big one is being the ability to set boundaries, saying no, prioritizing yourself. We always, that very cliche, put on the oxygen mask first, like from the airplane before helping someone else. There is so much truth to that, because if we're not okay here within ourselves, how can we be present and ready and available to others? So it isn't selfish. It's actually, a lot of people need to wrap their head around the fact that that's going to help other people too, if you can, focus on, and a lot of that is through boundary work. Mindset is another one. Little nuances, little tiny changes that you might need to think on about your perspective on things. And then also how important purpose is. And that is also a radical remission factor, but living in a very intentional, purposeful life and making sure that all of the decisions that you're making, the bigger decisions in your life, are heading you toward that greater purpose that you're feeling.
Whew. See why you need a coach? I'm just saying, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's a huge lifestyle change, especially if you are pretty much on the American sad diet. That's, and it's crazy. The social pressure, the social pressure to drink, the social pressure to eat less than well, all of those social pressures are really, really heavy. And so I am different. I'm a vegan and I'm gluten free and I'm sugar free mostly and organic, and you don't fit in. So how do you help women with that?
It really depends on whether they have a mental block about it, feeling that separation. I live in a place where lots of people are, I'm similar to you in that way. Lots of restaurants have gluten-free menus, and I'm in New Jersey, the Garden State. So we have lots of farmers markets and organic vegetables. And I feel very blessed that we have access, because not everybody has access. So some people who don't have access, this might be a good example. Oh my gosh, I can't buy organic. I don't have access to it. All I have is, I live in the middle of nowhere and there's just a Walmart or whatever. They just don't have the luxury of being able to receive these things. And we always say, it's just one of the 10 factors. So don't hyper focus on just that one thing, because while it is important and could be playing a role, it's not the only thing. So make sure you're basically take a breath, like we just talked about with the doctor. Take a breath. Yes, it's important. And yes, there are ways that you can make different decisions, whether you have a Walmart or a beautiful farmer's market to shop at. There's got to be ways that you can navigate your diet change or your lifestyle changes with what you have at present. It really just depends on how anxious you feel about what you don't have.
Yeah, and the stress, guys, is much worse than probably eating a Big Mac. I don't know. For me, a Big Mac would be disastrous.
I bet.
My body would go, oh, no,
yeah.
We're not doing that.
And that'll be enough incentive not to do that again.
Don't you wish it was that way, though? if people could have immediate results from the things that they're doing, but they don't, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm surprised that I'm having a heart attack. Why are you surprised? Like what have you done to take care of your heart? And so and I'm not being mean. I promise you I'm not being mean. I'm just trying to give you guys a wake up call. If you're still watching at this point, it's probably because you have something going on, and you 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 have to make the changes. Your coach can sure help you, but you have to be the one that actually makes the changes.
Right.
What is your
Yeah, and it's
favorite thing about?
important. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please. What's important?
I was just going to say it's really important that you are the one that's setting the goal, and don't let your coach tell you your goal. You need to be the one to decide what the goal is, because we're not going to be there holding your hand all week. It's important that, obviously together you can collaborate on that, and a coach can help guide you to what a good goal might be for you. But in the end, that's what you really need, is to have these mini goals that can help get you to that bigger, achievement that you're looking for in your lifestyle change.
Yeah, it's baby steps, guys. It is total baby steps. Atomic Habits is one of the best books I've ever read, and that's isn't it great? I mean, it's
So good.
just
Yeah.
incremental, tiny, and Darren Hardy's compound effect kind of mimics that. Just little bitty tiny changes, guys, and what it does is it just changes your trajectory, and you're still moving. You're still moving, and it's just going to change your trajectory. Okay, so what is your favorite part about coaching? And I want a story too. You don't have to give a name, but
Okay.
I want a story.
All right, I'm gonna have to give that some thought. But I would say my favorite part is, I really like working with people that are new to this whole thing, because they're like babies. They're wide-eyed and they're in awe and they can't believe, the introduction to this concept. And I was like that. So a little backstory to my, how I came to the work was, my sister was really sick 10 years ago. She had a really rare diagnosis, and we had never had cancer in our family. She had a very, like 1% of breast cancers are this type of breast cancer. And she was diagnosed and passed within a year. It was like a crash course in a cancer journey. And, that being an extremely difficult point in my life, obviously lots of changes came from that. And I started kind of digging into what else is there besides conventional treatment, because what if this happens to me, right? So 2 years later, I met one of my neighbors who became a dear friend later, who also had a dire prognosis. And my sister's treatment was very conventional. She did a mastectomy, chemo, radiation, and then the last day of radiation, she had a MRI because she had back pain and her cancer was everywhere in her body. So it was kind of like just a big disappointment. And then the opposing perspective, my friend has this dire prognosis. She's 35. She's, the doctors say she's got a year to live, and the chemo's not really going to touch it. So she decided to go to Mexico and go to one of the treatment centers there, which she did. And within 6 months, she was in remission. And to
Was it
me,
your
no, it was Oasis of Hope.
okay?
And she had a tumor that to this day, I've never heard of anybody with a thymus gland tumor. That just happened to be where her tumor developed. And she showed me a whole side of this other side of the cancer world with lifestyle change. And this place did all kinds of, health coaching and teaching her about vegan diets. And she was on a low dose chemo from there for, several years. And her quality of life was through the roof. I mean, she and I did triathlons together. We were, she was fully on living. And to me, that was like, that's the example. That's what I want people to know about cancer. It doesn't have to be, my sister's story doesn't have to be your story. It could also be my friend's story. And so that was, me being wide-eyed and excited. And obviously it led me to be where I am today as a cancer coach. I was not working with cancer at the time, which is kind of funny. I knew I wanted to help people with transformation. I just didn't really, I don't think I really knew there was cancer coaching. And then when I did, immediately, found Radical Remission, and the rest is history. But I think that's my favorite part, is working with people who are introduced to it for the first time.
Very cool. Very cool. And a story.
Another story, not just a story about myself, huh?
I
um,
listen to those too.
I think that, I'm just thinking about, the first time I meet with a lot of people, and this is a pretty common entree to this. So if someone is unfamiliar, someone gave them the book and you're like, all right, well, my aunt told me I should reach out to you, kind of thing. I really like them to reach out to a naturopath. I really feel connected to oncology naturopaths as being a really great second opinion for your conventional, diagnosis. The ones that I work with do not, deter you from your conventional treatment. They just want to support you in it. So how can they supplement you or help you with your lifestyle changes and test you for what your needs are? And really help you succeed regardless of whether you're doing treatment or otherwise. So it's one of the very first things that I talk to people about, and they don't even know what a naturopath is, and they don't know, they're kind of skeptical until I really validate, these people go to school as long as a doctor. They're just outside of pharma. They're in plant medicine, and, equally knowledgeable. A lot of them do fellowships and hospital rotations. They know the drugs really well. So it's really important for people to know that exists. And there's a directory online that you can search. I can give you the link for the show notes. The acronym is ONC-ANP. So I will pass that along to you for the show notes as well. That's a great place to find an oncology naturopath. So I'm just blanking on an actual specific story.
Okay, so somebody who came in and they were really, really scared and they were really tenuous and they just didn't think they could possibly do it. There we go. Who is that? No,
Yes.
I don't know who it
Okay.
is, but tell the story.
Yes. So I had someone back in my early days of coaching who was really terrified of conventional medicine. She was not ready to embark on that. And I really just listened for a long time. It was just a lot of sessions of me listening to her and her fear over conventional medicine, which led me to realize that she was probably going to get there. So she kept thinking about it. And so eventually we got to the point where we actually needed to face that, is a time. And she did end up going through, I mean, it's not that I really even led her to go to treatment. It just kept coming up. And that's with coaching. What I think the consistency of the conversation and what does keep coming up is clearly the thing that you need to work on. I have people that constantly bring up how they wish they could exercise more, or they are going to go exercise and then they just don't. So but it's that consistent theme. So whatever the consistent theme is, and that person ended up back in, she did go through treatment, and she's got her own radical remission. She'll be a full radical remission survivor this summer. So sometimes you need the treatment, but a lot of times there's a fear around something. And so it's just working through identifying it. And like I said, looking at it, realizing, maybe it is scary, but what are we really scared at? And is it true? I really like that question is this true, or is this something you're afraid of?
Is it 100% true?
Right. Is it a story?
Yeah, it helps a lot. Okay, that was beautiful. It is so, we generally know what we need, but we're afraid to go against what everyone else is saying. It is, and it's not everyone. What percent of people do you think use? I mean, I have a naturopath who's one of my dear friends and I love her to pieces. Shout out to you, Dr. Rita. But what do you think is the biggest thing that holds people back from doing this? And how many people do you think know what a naturopath is and would even consider that you could control your own health with what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know the statistics. What I do know is that it's growing more and more and more. I think since COVID, people did not have the opportunity to see doctors. They had to come up with their own ideas of how they were going to get healthy for many months. And I think that really opened up a lot of doors for people to see that there are things that our bodies can heal themselves if they're put in the right, if they're given the right opportunities. And by, adopting these lifestyle changes, you're at a really good start. And you may, in fact, need treatment for a diagnosis. And some people will say, you know what, just give me 3 months. Let me see if I can really commit to making these changes on my own first. and see what my blood work looks like. And, after, or 1 month, 1 week, whatever it is, people, a lot of times people will do something like that. They'll really want to, but it's a pretty low percentage. I think the biggest block is our cultural expectations that we put on the medical system. We expect them to be able to fix us. And, that's not fair. It's just a human person who happens to get a medical degree that's looking at statistics. Statistically, this medication works for your diagnosis the best. So we're going to go with that. So they don't always really get to look at you so individually, although I do see that trend changing. There's a lot of testing that can be done now for each person. You can get blood work done to see if you're chemosensitive or if this chemo is even going to work for you. So I really like seeing that kind of turn, because I think that's what scares people a lot is the unknown of, if I'm going to go through this kind of torturous experience, I want to know it's going to work. And, I really would hope for people that they would know beforehand that, and that's very cutting edge stuff that's happening right now. So yeah.
Which is why you want to make sure that you're with one of the 20% doctors, not one of the 80% doctors who don't know about it. And that is, it's such a shame. I think it was Tony Robbins wrote a book, maybe. Did he? And where it was 14 years for most doctors on the ground to get the newest technology to know about it, to understand it. And they get most of their education on the drugs from the drug salesman.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. And when they work in
crazy.
Hospitals, a lot of times they're just leaning on the pharmacist to know. They obviously know the most common drugs that are used, but they don't know. And that's important to be at a hospital that has really strong pharmacy. That's what they know. That's their specialty.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And it is very advisable. Even if you don't have any kind of anything wrong, read this book, watch the documentary, just check this out, because your health is, you only get one of these. This body that you've got, it's the only one, and you have to make it last until your time is up. And so I can't imagine anything worse than having my mind still and not having my body, and not being able to, you know, and especially if it was something that I could have prevented, but I just didn't want to take the time to learn about
or no,
it. So,
you didn't know, right? A lot of people just don't even know. I didn't know until my friend had the example in front of my eyes.
yeah, right. Oh, it's so exciting. Okay, so what have I not asked you that I should have?
Oh, good question. How does somebody sign up for a Radical Remission workshop? Because if you're not a reader, or if you're ready to you've read the book and you want to take this and really implement these factors into your life, there's over, I don't know, 125 coaches around the world, different time zones, different countries, and everybody is listed on the Radical Remission website. So if you go to radicalremission.com, on the very front page, you'll see find an event or find a workshop. You can click on that, and all the listings of people that have workshops offered right now on the website will be listed there. And we have lots of coaches that maybe are only coaching or maybe not offering the workshops publicly. So there's probably more out there than what you'll see, but there's a listing there. You can pick the date. You can pick, most of them are virtual. Sometimes they're in person. We try to do at least, 3 or 4 a year in person at different retreat centers. And those are always really, really fun. So if you can do it in person, highly recommend it. It's really immersive. And, I've never met a person that regretted coming to something like that. It's just really moving. But the virtual workshop is really beautiful, and people find really great connections and friends. And I can't believe I failed to mention the most important piece of information about the workshop. It just happened in the fall. Harvard has been studying the Radical Remission workshop for several years. And just this past fall, that the research study was finally published in a medical journal. And their findings were that someone it was specific to the Radical Remission workshop. They interviewed and did questionnaires with people that participated in the workshop before they took it, right after they took it, and then 6 months after they took it. So they looked at their trajectory, and they found that their quality of life increased significantly at 1 month, but continued to consistently increase their quality of life even at the 6 month mark. And that's where the research ended. So we're looking to do more research on that. But to have someone like Harvard really interested in what we're doing and to do the study and for it to have those findings, and the research that the lead researcher was saying to us recently, she did not expect at the 6 month mark to continue to see the trend. So that was really exciting for them to see that it, really validated the reason for the research. So if you had any question about learning about these healing factors before, dig into the docuseries, the books. If you want to go into the workshop, radicalremission.com will have the listings. And then you can also find a coach there, same area of the website. You can just look up a coach in your area, or just someone that resonates with you and their healing story.
Oh, it sounds like a one-stop shop for you ladies. Talk about a wonderful women-owned and women-run business. You ladies have done a fantastic job, and your hearts are in the right place. And you are making a massive difference, a massive difference. And I thank you with everything in me. I thank you that you all have taken the time and the passion to pour into something that anyone can tap into. It's right there for you. You can tap into this, and you can get. There are other answers, guys. The world is in a little bit of a shakeup right now, is what I'm seeing. At least my world is, and it seems like there's so many changes, and there's so much that's different. And this would be a perfect time for you to just say, you know what? I'm going to make my body a priority. I'm going to make my mind a priority. I'm going to make my spiritual life a priority, and and it's already laid out for you. It's like, here's your blueprint. Here's the steps that you take. Oh, I love that, right? It's like you don't have to create it.
Absolutely. And the thing I think that we can both probably say is you will never regret it. If you put
Amen.
that time and energy into your own self, you will never regret it.
It's an absolute fact, and you will your relationships in life, when you start doing this stuff, they will change. It's You are going to be a different person, and so relationships will change, and people around you, things around you, those things will change too, because you're different and your energy is different, and it might need to be. It just might need to be. And what's really cool is people around you will step up. The people that are really supposed to be there will step up, and they will support you, and they will go through this with you. I know you right now probably can't believe that, but but it is amazing what people can do and will do when they have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, if you guys would like to go to one of the events, and you go to checkout and you put in Epic Life with no space, you will get a $25 discount, which is incredibly cool. And you're also a certified health and wellness coach. Where were you certified?
So I personally went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, which is a very massive worldwide health coaching organization. But the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches exists as a kind of a newer organization that is helping health coaches connect with offering health insurance. So they're working on that goal. So I have a national board certification as well with them.
Seriously? Oh my
We'll
gosh,
talk
that is
more
the
about
most
that
exciting
offline.
thing. Oh, yes, that is so exciting, because it is expensive to do this. There is, and you're still paying for regular health insurance while you're doing it. So, girl, yes. Okay, more
Yeah.
power to you. More power.
Yeah, we're working with a couple of different hospitals right now trying to get these, the coaching in and the workshops into and they're open. They want to. They're just trying to figure out how to pay for it, and health insurance is the way. There are ways to do it. So we're excited
Oh,
about that
yeah.
this
Well,
year.
and with RFK in there, I would think that some of this might be a little easier than it would have been in the past. And I'm not being political at all. That's just the reality. It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah,
So
change is coming,
yes. Okay.
like it
Very
or not.
cool. There you go. All right. So I'm so excited about this podcast. Guys, if you've ever shared one before, if there's anyone that you know that might benefit from this, please share it. If you would like to talk to either one of us and you're a little like, I don't really want to talk. I don't want to commit that much. Then you can leave comments on YouTube. You might be listening to this on Spotify, but if you go to the YouTube, Think Your Way to an Epic Life, you can leave comments and both of us can answer those questions for you. So please, reach out, let us know how we can help you, how we can serve you, and you're not alone. And I'm sure it feels like you're alone, but you are not alone. There are so many people going through it and so many incredible stories. So if you want to hear great stories of people who have gone through this and are on the other side of it, your podcast will be linked below. Um, you've got a decent amount of I haven't checked that out. Do you have a decent amount on
Yeah.
there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have,
Okay.
I think somewhere in the ballpark of 70 episodes. We just started it a year ago and put one out every Wednesday.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm sure that there's very inspiring ones, and I'm sure that there are ones that are very informative and instructional. So please go check that out. Check out everything that we've got linked here below. And a question that I've got for you: are there any books? Are there any other documentaries or anything that you would recommend for our folks?
Some books that I really like. I mentioned Mind Over Medicine by Lissa Rankin. That's very aligned with radical remission. It's not specific to cancer, but it's really about finding that health. That's a good one. I love Kristen Neff, who is a self compassion researcher. I always say she's to self compassion what Kelly Turner is to radical remission. She's got some great TED talks. She's got a book called Self Compassion and Fierce Self Compassion, and I think that's really valuable for women to read. And then my favorite book about boundaries is written by Nancy Levin, one of Louise Hay's buddies. And her book is called Setting Boundaries Will Set You Free. And I think that book has had such a huge impact on so many women that we've worked with that I just want to make sure I share it with you today.
Oh gosh, just the title. Just say that title to
Right?
yourself over and over and over again and program
It's
yourself,
true.
because that title is the most true statement I've heard in a year. Like it and it's so difficult for ladies to do that. It's just been programmed in for so long that you have to take care of everyone. Well, honey, you can't if you don't have anything left to take care of them with. So whew, you know what, girl, I am loving this. This is so powerful and it's so helpful. And you are on Think Your Way to an Epic Life. So, what tips do you have for our folks to be able to think their way to their own epic life?
I think it's really important to see where you want to go and believe that you can go there and do everything, all the decisions that you make lead you towards that step. And, once you get there, it's going to be real beautiful.
Absolutely. Liz, I cannot thank you enough, not just for being on the show, but for what you're doing, that your work, your life, your passion is 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 giving hope. And please give my regards to Kelly. Tell her I'm just so impressed and wowed by everything that she's created. And it's so cool that you can have wild success by wildly taking care of other people. If you want wild success, guys, figure out how you can serve someone else, and it will just come to you. Thank you for being here. Any last words of wisdom before I let you go?
No, I just wanted to thank you for having me. You're so much fun to interview with and to chat with. So it's been such a pleasure to be here. And the Radical Remission Project thanks you for your support. I mean, you've really given us lots of glowing recommendations throughout this time, and we really appreciate that because it just helps encourage more people to learn more about it.
Absolutely, my honor. I hope and pray that it helps as many people as possible. So please share this, guys. Thank you.